people think Drake obsession with Tupac is just this, oh, he loves him as an artist, or oh, he just no. We've already had conversations on this channel about how I believe that the stories in the Bible just rehash themselves in our personal life on a grand scale and on a personal scale. Because every type of human being, every archetype of human being is in the Bible, right? Because of this, you can find these stories and you can find these parallels in really any avenue that you look at it from. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is Drake's obsession with Tupac. And not only his obsession with Tupac, but his obsession with Tupac and hip hop's ancient artifacts. Right? Now, a lot of people will say, oh, those aren't ancient artifacts. Boom, boom. But think about it. In the context of history, right? When we think about jewelry, gold, all these different things, and think about people who were prominent public figures at one point in the Bible, the things that they carried, the things that they held dear to them, those things are seen as ancient artifacts. So who's to say 1,000 years from now, where they tell the story of hip hop, things of the nature like Tupac's ring or Tupac's chain or pharrels chains, how are those not ancient artifacts? You see what I'm saying? When you look at it from that context, you can see that this is a recycling story that just continues to show itself, and we're seeing it again. Now, the first thing I want to compare Drake and his obsession with Tupac and hip hop's ancient artifacts is a story in the Bible, right? And it's when Babylon actually destroys Jerusalem. And not only does it destroy Jerusalem, they go and attack the first temple, which is like home of ancient artifacts and all these different things that are important to its history, its cultural identity. Like that's what this temple is full of. And Babylon not only goes in and massacres people, but they also destroy and loot the jewelry and the statues and all types of stuff that was in this temple, right? The number one reason that Babylon did this was because Judah kept rebelling. And that's really what it came down to. Ultimately, they felt like Judah was going to overcome them at some point. And because of that, they decided to step on their necks early. You feel what I'm saying? After they take care of that, Babylon then deports the remaining survivors. Now, when we look at that from the context of today and look at it the context of hip hop today, right? If you position Drake as Babylon in this metaphor or in this hypothetical, right? Drake is attacked by Meek Mill. Why? Because Meek Mill finds out that Drake is not writing his raps. And not only that, he had to get a feature from Drake, not knowing that he didn't write his raps. You see what I'm saying? Because of this, he rebels, right? And leaks information that is not supposed to be leaked, right? Then we get Pusha T, somebody else who right before he starts to get at Drake says, how you even gonna write your wrongs when you won't even write your songs? You feel what I'm saying? He also talks about the fact that they feel like Drake is going against the tradition of what this is. And what does Drake do? He silences Pusha T. Now, metaphorically, this is no different than destroying Pusha T, because the very thing in this hip hop thing that we are supposed to be able to do is say what we want to say unapologetically. That's what hip hop is about. He took away his free speech. Pusha T wasn't able to say what he wanted to say about Drake because Drake took away his free speech. You see what I'm saying? Right after this, Drake starts to flex on Pusha T, right? In his idea. He buys Pharrell's chains and is now rapping about them, flexing them, all this different stuff, right? And when you get to the song Meltdown, where he talks about, I melt down the chains that I bought from your boss, give a F about all of that heritage. What does that sound like to you? That sounds like when Babylon went and destroyed Jerusalem. When Drake is saying, I will take these chains that are held in high regard in hip hop and I will burn them down. I will melt them down because I don't care about none of that heritage shit that y'all talking about. What is the difference between that and what Babylon did to Jerusalem? And we ain't even got to Tupac yet. But what is the difference between that and what Babylon did to Jerusalem? What's the difference? We are witnessing somebody who is emulating these energies of the past, these entities of the past. It doesn't mean that he's an entity, but humans historically in the Bible all start to perceive, or not all of them, but there are figures in the Bible who start to go in over their heads, right? And start to think that they're on par, like Saul, on par with, able to do it without God and all this different stuff. You feel me? So when you look at it from that perspective, Drake isn't really doing anything different when he's talking about destroying these chains and destroying these ancient artifacts and melting them down. This is the same energy being passed on for eons and eons and eons, and it's showing up again, right? And really, the only reason the only thing that didn't happen that was similar was Babylon didn't go in and then deport the remaining people, and that's because the battle happened with Kendrick. When you really think about it, think about what was going on and who they were trying to pin as the faces of hip hop and all this different stuff. They were trying to get the remaining motherfuckers out of this motherfucker. Let's be real. Now, this is where we start to get to Tupac. It doesn't start and end with the Bible. You see what I'm saying? These things repeat themselves. And we can think about it when we go to 2014 and the Islamic State, or ISIS, right? Between 2014 and 2017, ISIS destroyed many ancient artifacts in temples in Iraq and Syria. You see what I'm saying? And they did it because they wanted to get rid of the history that was there prior. Anything that was pre-Islamic State, they wanted to destroy it and cleanse it from history. From history. Because they deemed what they were doing was the correct way to do it. That don't sound similar to y'all? That don't sound familiar? An entity, right? And we, you know what they say about ISIS and all that, but we'll talk about it, you feel me? But just for the sake of the conversation, when we talk about what ISIS was doing in 2014 and 2017, I'm talking going in ancient temples, destroying ancient artifacts, things that are very important to Syria and important to its cultural identity, the history of its cultural identity. You feel me? These are bloodlines of information being passed on, and they took some of it and then destroyed temple and destroyed a lot of it, and they kept it to bolster their own economic system. You see what I'm saying? How is that any different than what we see today in hip hop? You see what I'm saying? Or what we were starting to see, especially when we talk about Drake's obsession with Tupac, right? So think about it from that perspective. Drake buys Tupac's chain, his ring, and then uses his music when he uses the restroom. And many people say that this is because, he loved Tupac and this is a show of his admiration and all that. But that isn't true, because he then went and used Tupac's voice in a distasteful way. He really went to use Tupac's voice in a distasteful way to win a battle. That's because Drake sees Tupac as one of those entities, as one of those pillars or statues that you will find in these temples. That's how Drake sees Tupac. And I know you hear me. I know you hear me. For the people that hear me, I know you hear me. For the people that don't, that's okay. You might hear me later. You feel me? But when we looking at the fact that Drake has constantly referenced Tupac, it's constantly big up Tupac, but it never felt really sincere. If you look at it from that perspective, Drake is he's looking at Tupac as one of those things that are important figures, an important public figure of idolatry in a sense. You see what I'm saying? Where people can be looking at these artists or looking at these entities that come in hip hop and place themselves as one of the greats to ever do it. Some people can look at those things as they're beyond human. You see what I'm saying? Like they're beyond a greater power or some sorts. Like they're beyond God of some sort. You see what I'm saying? From that perspective, Drake constantly buying his stuff and all that, it's no different than taking the chains off of a pharaoh in the tomb. There's no difference than taking, you know what I'm saying, taking the jewelry off of a mummy of some sort or some of that nature, and going into a temple and taking a statue. Like it's really no different, especially when you then flex it in front of everybody. You feel what I'm saying? And from that perspective, Drake keeping Tupac's chains, keeping Tupac's rings, and then flexing them constantly, it's proof that Drake sees Tupac as something that everybody is idolizing. Otherwise, he wouldn't use it and weaponize it against Kendrick Lamar and weaponize it against the very culture that he deems idolizes him. You can see how he feels about these things based on his attacks. You feel me? What Drake is doing is no different than what Syria was doing in Iraq, or what the ISIS was doing in Iraq and Syria. It's really no difference. And then to top it all off, this, people might call this a reach, but when I think about AI, I don't think what I'm about to say is a crazy reach. I really don't. Think about it. Saul asked a witch, right, to summon the spirit of Samuel, right? And this was in a time of not understanding and distrust and anxiety and all the different stuff. He went and asked a witch to bring him the spirit of Samuel so he can have answers, right? When you think about the Kendrick Lamar battle and right before Euphoria, it would be hard for you to convince me that Drake wasn't shaking in his boots trying to figure out what Kendrick Lamar was going to do. And that's why he was applying so much pressure to get him to respond. You feel what I'm saying? I think it was the same thing. I think Drake using Tupac's voice is no different than necromancy. I really do. I think that, of course, using AI isn't automatically necromancy. I wouldn't say that. But when I'm thinking about Saul and what he went to go access in order to get answers, in order to have something figured out, in order to get to a certain point, I don't see the difference in using Tupac's voice, a dead man that's a legend in this hip hop thing, that he knows in his heart would never approve of his voice being used by somebody that likes of Drake. Feel what I'm saying? Him using that and using Tupac's voice, to me, that's no different than necromancy. Bringing the spirit of somebody who is no longer around to get something across. I don't see the difference. I really don't. Some people can call that a reach. If you go watch the earliest part of my videos on my YouTube, the number one thing I always said is this channel is for the people that think too deep in the shit. That's why I say it's about to get surgical. That's what this channel is about. So for me, that's not a reach. I genuinely believe that that's not much of a difference than using necromancy to talk to things or get answers from things that are no longer here. You feel what I'm saying? There's something extremely eerie about how that battle played out due to Taylor Made. It's almost like immediate karma for it. Like come on, bro. You feel what I'm saying? And I'll wrap this video up by saying history is continuing to repeat itself. It's continuing to repeat itself. I mean, even bro, I'm on my. I don't think Donald Trump. I don't think he's gone. But as of today, right? Because I'm uploading this on Sunday. Everybody on Twitter talking about, oh, he might have passed away. He might have passed away or whatever, right? Just in case he did, and we find out Saturday. You feel what I'm saying? Just in case he did, and we find out Saturday, I just want to say, wouldn't that be interesting timing? Wouldn't that be interesting timing? We've been talking about this shit. We've been talking about everything that's been going on. Wouldn't that be interesting timing? Right? Wouldn't that be interesting? With everything that's been going on since this shift we've been talking about, Donald or passing away, is very interesting at this time. And I say that to say, history is repeating itself. It's repeating itself. And these stories in the Bible are consistently showing you the things that will show up in our reality on our personal level and on a higher scale. You feel what I'm saying? So, yeah, I appreciate y'all though. Like, comment, subscribe, especially if you've been here, especially if you're new here. Yeah, we're going to keep doing these every Sunday. I love this. I appreciate all y'all support. You feel me? I love doing this. Love talking to y'all, sparking real deep conversations. I'm grateful that we have an audience that can respectfully disagree, because I know y'all don't agree with me all the time, but we respectfully conversate in the comments. We respectfully give our points. We respectfully disagree, because we all know at the core, we all want the same. We all want the same thing at the end of the day. You feel what I'm saying? I think we all do. Under the limiting beliefs, under the, you feel me, all that stuff. We all want the same thing. You feel me? But I appreciate y'all. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna catch y'all, man.